Hello, disruptors and viewers from around the globe. We are so happy that you have tuned into Mindset Mastery Moments with Dr. Alisa Whyte, your number one mindset disruptor. You are tuned into a podcast that is a top 1% podcast where we aim to help you shift from limiting belief to success in your life, your business, relationships, and your career. Tune in as we help you unlock the mindset that is key to your success. Disruptors, to another phenomenal episode of Mindset Mastery Moments with yours truly, Dr. Alisa Whyte. I am so excited for this episode. I couldn't wait to have our guest and thought leader, coach, speaker, and all kinds of phenomenal things. We are rocking an amazing episode that we're calling Mastering the Power of the Present. You know, we live in a world where many of us find ourselves thinking about the past all the time, or just frequently future casting so much. Listen, Dr. Whyte is not saying that you should not have goals and dreams and you should not be planning for your future. But we often forget the importance of staying in the now, the present, and really truly embracing all the richness and the experiences and just what all is around us right now. Our guest today on Mindset Mastery Moments has mastered this, and he has been teaching this throughout the country and has every chance he gets. Yeah, do you all remember 2020? Oh boy, a lot of us had choices. We could become bitter or better. Our guest today, he became better, and he is going to share all about it. He is a successful individual. Let's tell you about my guest. His name is Dr. Recker. He is not an ordinary achiever. He's a husband, a father, a dentist, an elite success coach. He is also a pilot. Talk about overachiever. He's a speaker, author, and a mountain climber, and a recovering triathlete. In the face of life challenges, he's discovered true fulfillment wasn't at the top of the mountain. And you all know he has climbed several of those. Just look at his resume. Today, he has devoted himself and his life's work to helping individuals win the now. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And unlock the life they were meant to live. As a speaker, he shares stories and strategies that equip the audiences to live with hope, have a plan, and believe that good days are ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, mindset disruptors are listening all over the world. Let's welcome to Mindset Mastery Moments, Dr. Recker. We're so happy to have you here with us, Dr. Eric.
Alisa, I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to talk Win the Now. I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
Let's do this. And that is what you said to me from day one. And so I'm excited to hear, because this is one of my personal beliefs and one of my growth areas that I'm always working on is the power of being in the present moment and understanding that the only thing I have right now is the now. So Dr. Eric, we're just going to have you tell us your version of who you are, what you do, and what's so exciting about winning in the now.
Yeah. So if you give me about 3 hours, I'll give the condensed version and then we'll come back. So, oh man.
I love it. I have the time. I'm here for it.
So many ways I could go with this, but ultimately I was at a point in my life where I realized that I was not living in the present moment. My mind spins, and I'm sure, Alisa, that I'm the only person who has a mind that spins, but let's say maybe some other people have a mind that spins, and it spins about our past and it spins about our future. And what it does when it does that is we miss out on the now. And it happens all the time. We miss out on the now with our families at the dinner table. We miss out on the now in a meeting. You ever had that when you're in a meeting and all of a sudden your mind just takes a full-on commercial break and all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, I missed something. It was probably important. I have no way to get it back. So I knew that this was happening to me, but
Yes.
I didn't know what to do about it. And that's where the concept of Win the Now came up.
Oh my goodness. You just said it, because that's sometimes I'm like, what is wrong with me? And it takes a lot to keep my mind focused on being in a meeting, particularly like you scrubbed the nail for me there, because I'm like, I can cook dinner. I have gone grocery shopping. I have planned another meeting. And if you let me have a pen and a notepad, I'm probably not taking notes in that meeting. I'm probably planning something for the future. So, and I still work on that. So now I've disciplined myself to where I put the pen and the notepad down and I'm listening and trying to maintain eye contact around the room, even though it's not my meeting. It's just I'm a part of someone's presenting, because I can definitely distract myself. And I realized I had that going on so much. Why the power of presence became so important for me, because I realized, I mean, they were like, it's ADD and all these things. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just overdriven. So Dr. Recker, your journey is truly a tapestry of resilience. I got to learn about you through our conversations. It's full of resilience, self-discovery. Can you take us back to that pivotal moment during COVID closure, all the crazy around the world, when you realized you weren't living in your present? And what did that look like for you? Because I'm sure many of our viewers and listeners can tap into and say, yes, I have the same story.
Yeah, so I've always been a high achiever. I've now been a dentist for 21 years, and I still am a practicing dentist. I still see patients in my office 3 days a week, and I work on my coaching and speaking on the other 2 to 4 to 5 days a week. Sometimes the math doesn't add up, but I find the time for it.
Yes.
So I found myself when COVID started, my family and I were going to go to Spain for spring break. And I was super excited because this was going to be the vacation. I knew that I had not been really present. I'd really been struggling with being in the now, really struggling with worry and fear, struggling with burnout. I mean, now that I look back kind of forensically on that, I was torched, not just burned out, I was torched. And my oldest son was graduating. So this trip to Spain was going to be the thing. It was going to be the trip to end all trips. I was going to make up for all of this that I had missed out on. And this little thing called COVID happened. And oh, by the way, we didn't go on spring break. And oh, by the way, it's a good thing because Spain was kind of the epicenter of COVID. So it was this thing that I really grieved that. And I really felt the loss from that. And then I had to close my dental practice for we didn't know how long. So I sent my team home, and I was inundated, as all of us were, with what I call death by webinar. I had hardly ever been on a Zoom meeting before COVID. And here I was with 1 million new webinars and infection control and new strategies and PPP loans and all of this stuff. And a spinning mind that was out of control became out of control and then some.
Oh,
so
man.
I made a really interesting commitment. And, I'm a faith person. I'm a Jesus guy. So I believe that God put this thought in my head, but I knew I needed quiet. I'm horrible at quiet. So I committed to 30 minutes of quiet a day. And that's me in a nutshell. That's me being a high achiever. I didn't say I'd try for 5 or 2. I went right for a half hour of quiet every day. And I said I was going to do that until my dental practice opened back up. The first day, I think I looked at my watch 46 seconds into it thinking, dang, I got to be close to 30 minutes.
Oh, you got me tearing up, because that sounds so much like me.
Yeah. And so, but I didn't give up. I figured out a new system for how to do that. I hit do not disturb on my phone, and I set a timer for 30 minutes. So I didn't have to know what time it was. I just had to be in that quiet moment.
Yes.
And through that time, that's when I fully realized that the problem was that I was not in the present moment. I was working on an old operating system of being bullied and overachieving, and we'll get to more of that later. But
Yes.
I realized, I wanted to do something more with my life. This was not this burnout path. I don't want to arrive safely at the end of my life. I want to make a difference. I want to make an impact. And that is where the concept of Win the Now came in, because I knew I had to find a way to get myself back to the moment.
Man, wow. That's fantastic. So if you all are listening, can you see yourself in this spot? I'm pretty sure. I mean, a lot of us we hear about meditation, like, I can't even keep my mind on track for 10 seconds, right? So absolutely, Dr. Eric, I love hearing your story because so many of us can resonate with that. So you talked about the closure of your dental practice that was kind of forced on you because of COVID. And that's when the concept came, and Win the Now. If you guys are getting it, if you're watching this, put hashtag Win the Now right now. So Win the Now emerged from your own need and desire to want to be in the now. It seems like it's about overcoming the epidemic of distraction and being fully present in our lives, Dr. Eric. So what I want to ask you is, with this realization, how do you guide people to overcome distractions and fully be present?
Yeah, so to do that, I have to explain just a little bit more what the whole concept is. So as I was going through this quiet time, I thought of the concept, win the day. That's what I got to do. That's what I'm going to talk about. And then I thought, man, I have a huge day in my office. I might have 30 or 40, maybe even 50 interactions between patients and my team and maybe the parents of my patients who have come in, all kinds of different things. So for me, a day was way too much. I could not measure my whole day because it would be reduced to one thing that happened. I would come home and my amazing wife, Amy, who's been super supportive of me through all of this, would say, "How was your day?" And I would say, "Oh, this happened," or "Oh, this bad thing happened." And I'd always reduce my day to that. Like, I think I walked in the door and she was kind of like, "How was your day?" Because I'd be quick to just blurt something. So I needed a smaller metric to measure. That's where Win the Now came from. So when you see that many patients and you're going to reduce your day to the worst thing that happened, you're going to have a crappy day. You just are. So I broke mine into what does a now look like for me? So when I'm seeing my patients, I'm scheduled on the 15 minutes. Sometimes we'll have a longer procedure that takes 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 15-minute blocks. But I break it down into that 15-minute chunk. And what does a win look like? So a win in that moment looks like a good interaction with a patient. It looks like a good conversation with my hygienist when I come in to do an exam. It looks like maybe we were able to help a patient diffuse their anxiety a little bit. It looks like any number of things in that moment. And so I try to grab a win in that moment. And when you're focused on trying to grab wins, and here's a key point, especially the wins don't have to be a loss for someone else. So wins for all of us. If I do any of those things, it's not only a win for me, it's a win for the patient as well. And we call it win-wins. So those are the big wins. Now, the reality is we're going to take some losses during the day. It's going to happen. There's going to be some things that don't go well. Sometimes anesthetic doesn't work the way we want it to because we're humans. And so it's easy to let that drag you down. But when I feel like I take a loss during the day, I always have a piece of paper with me. I just make a quick note on there. And then I revisit it when I have some time because the next now is right there. And when I go back, I look at those losses, I ask only one question. What did I learn from that?
Whew, yes.
And when you learn something, guess what? It's not a loss anymore. So through the wonderful concept of neuroplasticity, I'm starting to, I have retrained my brain to start to look at my day like this. And I'm finding so many more wins than I used to. And it's made all the difference in my mindset.
Woo! Listen, Dr. Decker, you just give us a whole lot. Let me just recap and make sure I got it, because this is being recorded. Thank you, Jesus. This is being recorded because I would not like to have this conversation with you unrecorded, because this is where the work begins, and this is where the win begins. And I love that you said win-win. So you said the first thing you do and you teach people how to do is to not focus so much on all the things that didn't go right, but keeping present allows you to observe and acknowledge things that are not going the way you want it to go. Because I don't know if it's a right or wrong. It's just not going the way you intended it, right? And so you write that down, make a note, because you can solve that later, because the next now is right now. And you determine these win-win moments. And this is why I named the podcast Moments, because a lot of times we want to chunk up all the things. And so I'm having this moment with you right now that says it's in those moments where it's not only something that you feel like you're winning at, but the people you're working with and serving are also winning. And those are the moments where you're winning in the present. I am taking that in.
I love it. I love it. And
so my new thing. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah. No, this is one of those things that really, when you embrace it, it's life-changing, because it's not only at work, then you go home. And what does a win look like around the dinner table? It looks like good listening, good conversation, probably not having our phones with us, enjoying the food, and then helping clean up and just doing all of that together. And it is just, it's amazing, because how many times have we taken a loss during the day and we're just deflated for the rest of our day? We have no momentum. We can't get back in the game because we still have that. It's like we have that anchor dragging behind us, and it's really stinking heavy. But if we know, and maybe even at lunch, we have a little time, something crummy happened in the morning, we have a little bit of time at lunch. Can I take 5 minutes and process what happened so that I can get back into the game for the afternoon?
Yes, I love that. I know. And when you spoke about just being present at the dinner table, I remember a few, like maybe 12 years ago, I started a weight loss journey. And one of the things that the coach I was working with taught me was if you just sit with the food and take your time. This is why eating in front of the television or eating in the car is actually so not good for you. And even your weight loss or your health, maintain your health through your diet. And she taught me that I should sit at a table, don't even eat in if I can avoid it, avoid eating with maybe disposable utensils, get an actual nice, beautiful plate with nice cutlery, a nice glass, even though I'm drinking water. And here, guys, I still follow that. I drink it. You're like, what are you drinking, Dr. Whyte? I'm drinking water, right? And I she said, sit at the table and sit there and take every bite and savor the spices and the flavors of the food. She said that conscious eating, watch, you're not going to eat as much as you usually do because you're enjoying this process of eating and not just eating so you can be filled and move. And she was right. Until today, many are surprised that I definitely don't eat a restaurant portion, but they're surprised that I don't finish my steak in one sitting because I'm consciously eating. And even though I might be having conversation, I am still subconsciously enjoying, oh, this steak is really good. You're basically telling me today, and I'm learning that that is a great approach for almost everything in my life.
It is. Yeah. So one of my, an author that I really like, he talks about being nostalgic about the moment that you're in. Wow. So really taking in the moment. And what's really neat, my oldest son got married this summer. And I asked if I could say something at the rehearsal dinner, which I feel like I earned because we paid for it. But
Right?
I was in that room. There were 55 people in that room altogether for the rehearsal dinner, all people that were heavily invested in my son and his about to be wife. And I
Yes.
encouraged everybody. I said, hey, this is a chance for a 5 senses experience. So I
Mm.
want all of you to really have a 5 senses experience tonight. Taste the food, really savor it, enjoy it, hear great conversation, have great conversation. See
Yes.
the people around you that matter to you and matter to them.
Mm.
And then touch. So make sure that you give a handshake or a hug or a high five, whatever's
Mm.
appropriate, and just smell the food, because it came in
Yes.
at that point. I'm like, smell the food, because oh man, it's going to be amazing. But I think when we try to have those 5 senses experiences, we make food so transactional.
Yes.
Transactional. It was never
Mhm.
meant to be that way. We were meant to enjoy it, to
Yes.
savor it, to just
Yes.
enjoy it and take our time with it.
Absolutely. And so it's so in relationships. And before we go to commercial break, I want to ask you this. So when in relationships, a lot of times couples, family members, just people, we have this way when we haven't seen each other for a long time, we go back and bring up the past. And usually it's always good and gravy when we bring up something that was good. But when we bring up something like, oh, remember that one time you fell down when you were entering that store? Are you going to do that again? Or maybe you're at the dinner table with your spouse and you bring up, oh my gosh, you didn't take out the trash last night after dinner. Please don't do that again. And it's the intent is to help you to bring out the trash tonight. But the verbiage and the choice and the reflection of something that's in the past is overclouding it. How do you say to our viewers and audience and listeners across the world, how do we avoid communicating in the past and staying in the now so we can win in those moments?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've tried to help my kids understand, and I actually, at a retreat that I was leading last week, we talked about this too. Try to avoid situations where there's no upside. What do I
Ooh,
mean by that? Like, there's no upside in saying it in that passive aggressive tone to someone else. It would
yes.
be much more beneficial to say, hey, would it be okay if you took out the trash tonight? Or, hey, and when a thought pops into your head and you think it's funny, well, just try to think, is it funny to you? Is it going to be hurtful
Mm,
to someone else? Because I think we pass so much judgment, and I don't think we always intend to. I think we joke around and we're
yes.
sarcastic with other
Yes.
people, but not everybody gets it. And we may
Yes.
open up a really, really big wound. My wife's grandpa
Yes.
he had a tremor. And so
Mm,
his hand would always shake. And his wife would be really relentless with him about that. The spot would so he'd spill a lot. So the spoon would be right here, and you could see the drip about to fall. And she was on him. She'd say, "Oh, you spilled again." It hadn't even hit his shirt yet.
ooh,
So, and we didn't understand that this is kind of why he would sneak in early and try to eat, because he didn't want to eat in front of people. So I think all these times that we try to be funny and all these times that we try to, get our point across, I think
yes.
we're doing it in a hurtful way. So if we can pause and say, hey, if you're on the receiving end of that, how would you want it said to you?
Right. Wow. I hope you guys got your mindset disrupted right there, because a lot of times, like you said, it's so important to understand that we might not intend to hurt anyone, but just sit on the other side. And this is why I believe that people should really think the thoughts that they think about before they let it out of their mouth. And that just rhymed. Think the thoughts. And that's what Dr. Decker is telling us. Think the thoughts that you think about. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Oh my goodness. This segment has been so powerful. We will be back after a moment from our sponsors. Disruptors, we are back with Dr. Decker. He has walked us through the profound process of winning in the now. Dr. Decker taught us that we need to understand what truly matters to us, why it matters to us, and creating a plan to move forward. And he's taught us that the plan is rooted in so much hope and belief that the good days are as well ahead of us, but while we win in the present. And so this, Dr. Decker, I have a question for you, because many high achievers struggle with the dichotomy between success and fulfillment. How do you help people align themselves with the two? Because I would say both are important. We all want to be successful and we all want fulfillment, and we confuse them. But what is the difference, and how do we go about getting in a space where we feel successful and fulfilled?
It all comes down to one word, and that word is why.
Ooh.
We have to know. We have to know. So I have a history of being bullied when I was growing up, and I was told that I wasn't good enough.
Wow.
Well, guess what? I had attached to me. I am not good enough. Something that I wore for the majority of my life. So school wasn't good enough. And then when I wasn't good enough in school, which I was, but I didn't tell myself that I was. And then in dental school, it wasn't good enough that I was in the top 15 in my class. I had to be in the top 10 in my class. And into triathlon, well, I got into running first. A 5K wasn't enough. A 10K wasn't enough. And I went all the way through marathon. Then I started triathlon, and nothing was good enough. I went all the way through to the Ironman distance twice. Wow. I actually almost got to the point I was considering signing up for a double Ironman. And I just realized I'm so burnt out on this. So that's why I say I'm a recovering triathlete, because you never really fully recover from it, but I'm not participating in triathlon anymore. And so then I found myself signed up for the Leadville 100 mountain bike race. So it's a 100-mile mountain bike race in Leadville, Colorado. And it is all above 9,000 feet. It gets up to almost 13,000 feet. So there's a ton of climbing, a ton of mountains, a lot of oxygen choices that need to be made. But we went out there the week. Race was on Saturday. We drove out there on Tuesday in one of those big rental RVs, the really inconspicuous ones that say, rent me all the way across the side. So we drove out in one of those things, and we live in Iowa, which is less than 1,000 feet above sea level. And we did what every flatlander does, right? We got out there Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, we got up and we hiked Mount Princeton, which is a 14,000 foot peak. So I hiked it with my two brothers-in-law, and I was standing on top of that peak, and I got hit in the gut with this realization when I was up on the top of the mountain. If you do not know why you are climbing the mountain, you will not find the answer at the top. And that just blew me away, that realization, because I had been climbing and chasing and crossing finish lines and doing all of that for so many years. And I didn't have a clue why I was doing it. So I thought that the fulfillment would be in the success, but it wasn't. So that is where I found myself. And I will tell you that I ended up finishing the Leadville race. It was an amazing race. I crossed the finish line. I did well, but it did not mean what I thought it was going to mean. And so then I had to go back and start looking at my life and realizing, what is my why? Why am I climbing the mountain? Why am I doing all this triathlon? Why am I working so hard? Why am I pushing myself? And that has made such a huge difference for me in my life, knowing why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Oh, wow. That everyone on who is a constant and frequent and habitual listener of Mindset Mastery Moments know that we talk about that purpose grounded mindset as many times because everything that you do should have a big why. Or if for you might think it's a smaller why and then a bigger one and then the biggest one, however you do it, but it must be purpose attached to it. And so here's where I want to ask you, Dr. Decker, when it comes to careers and choosing a career. So we're talking about success versus fulfillment. You can be a successful person in the career path that you choose. Like for you, it's been a dentist. For me, initially educator, entrepreneur. And we can achieve and make lots of money, buy the house, buy the car, but still end up not feeling fulfilled. Was there a time when you felt like you were successful but not fulfilled? And how did you work through that moment?
Yeah, I did it wrong for a long, long time. So I always felt like success and fulfillment was in addition. I just had that mixed up. So I thought it was doing another race, buying another thing. There was a time that I really chased after a custom Jeep. I wanted this really custom Jeep from Texas with a Kevlar paint job and a lift kit and all the bells and whistles and all this stuff. And I researched it and I did all of this stuff. I bet I spent 100 hours looking at their website and custom designing things and all of this. And so finally I pulled the trigger. It was built. They shipped it up to Iowa and I met the guy at the truck stop and there it was. My wife had driven me over there. I'm like, all right, this is it. This is life. I got the Jeep. Like this is one of the best moments of my life. They rolled the Jeep down off of the trailer. He handed me the keys. I signed some paperwork. I told my wife, I'll be back, but it ain't going to be anytime soon. And so, yeah, I'm driving around with the Jeep. I took the T-tops off and I make it about 2 miles in the Jeep. This is a brand new Jeep, 0 mile, 10 miles on it.
Wow.
And I'm driving along and a warning light comes on. And so I had the music cranked. I had Need to Breathe was playing, one of my favorite bands, and I was just cruising like it was perfect. It does not get better than this.
Yes.
So I pulled over, got out the owner's manual, and it said something about the alignment. It said, see a dealer, authorized dealer immediately.
Wow.
Well, here's the problem. I live in a small town in Iowa. There is a Jeep dealer. But I went and looked at Jeeps there, but did not buy one from them.
For a reason, right?
I have my pretty new Jeep, and I have to pull in there with my tail between my legs. And I will tell you this, the wind was out of my sails instantly. That Jeep, from that moment on, that Jeep never became what I thought it was going to become. It just didn't. And it was cool and people loved it and it was a head turner and all that kind of stuff. Yes. But I realized in that moment that I was more a thrill of the chase person than I was actually owning the thing. So I think if we can realize that about ourselves, when are we chasing just to chase? How many times have we wanted something? And even after we hit purchase on Amazon or wherever it is, or buy that car, whatever, instantly it's not what we had hoped it would be.
Never is.
So I think that's been a huge realization for me. Don't get me wrong, I still struggle with it. I really do. That's what our American economic machine is built on, us feeling bad that we don't have something.
Right.
But I think, and it's not bad to have stuff. I have stuff. My wife and I have stuff. But what is that stuff doing for you, and why? How is it serving your why? Like I'll say it. My wife and I have a house that's way bigger than what we need for the two of us now that our kids have moved out.
Right.
But because we built this house, We have a local youth group that comes over on Wednesday nights and is able to use it. We have
Yeah.
friends over. We were able to have a concert for 40 people in our house. All of
Wow.
these things so I want to have things that help
Right.
facilitate relationships.
Oh, I love that. I love
So
that.
yeah, so it's just looking at the stuff you have. It's looking at not just buying stuff to get ourselves in more debt just to make us temporarily feel good. It's
Hmm.
okay, why do I want this? What is this going to do for me? And how is it going to serve my why?
Oh my goodness. Dr. Decker, you're bringing us right back to, again, what we said in the last segment is the purpose and the why behind everything. And this is why I talk about purpose grounded mindset over and over and over, because it's the same way I approach attending events, being a part of something, purchasing. And again, like you said, it is not always easy, but that's how it is in the beginning. As it becomes so effortless after a while, I say to our audiences and everywhere I go that living a purpose grounded life or choosing purpose does not make life easy. It just simplifies decisions. And it
Mm.
also brings fulfillment at the end of each decision you make. The chances are so much higher when you understand why you're having, why you're buying, why you're doing, why you're being, why you're saying what you're saying. All of it just adds up. And so it's not very common. It is the path that's least traveled by most, by the masses, I would say. But I believe that we can sit here, and if COVID happened all over again, and everything shut down, there's so much stuff going around the internet, all that. If that happens, I would still be fulfilled. And I'd say I have this moment where I said, my life, I had a health scare and my life was at risk in the last few months, literally. And I said to myself, if you were to die today, would you be happy that you would have lived? And the answer to that was yes. Because for the last maybe 8, 9 years of my life, everything that I do has become more about my why. And so it's easier, even when it's hard. It's simple. It's simple. No, I can't do this. And I would have loved to support you. I would have loved to be there, but this is not in alignment. It would take me off course. So I have to sit back. Maybe I can give you $50 so you can go do your thing. But I personally can't be there. I can't invest my time and my energies. So thank you so much, Dr. Decker, for sharing that with us. I hope you all are catching what he's putting down on all this, because you can be successful and not be fulfilled. And I believe that at the end of our lives, we never look back and think about all the wonderful things we bought and all the wonderful things we own. We don't care. If we have that opportunity where we age and die, we're usually looking to sit and talk to people and teach them something that they can be a better person, right? And so we talk about legacy and we confuse legacy with stuff. There,
Mhm. Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
can you weigh in on the difference between legacy and stuff for us for a minute so our viewers can capture that a little bit deeper?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that moment you talked about when we find ourselves at the end of our lives, we're not going to wish that we'd worked harder. We are not going to wish that we had acquired more things because we're going to be more concerned about the fact that somebody has to disperse those things now that we've made it to the end of our life. I think our biggest regrets are going to be the things that we didn't do, the risks that we didn't take, the opportunities that we had that we just said, it's not the right time. I don't know. Maybe I'll put that off for a little while.
Yes.
And so I think for me, I want my legacy to be, and my super deep why is that I want to make a difference in the world that's utterly disproportionate to who I am. That's my why. That's the deep, deep why. So when I post on social media, I want it to be for that. When I'm coaching somebody, I want it to be for that. When I am speaking to a group or leading a workshop, I want it to be for that. I want to make a difference in the world that's utterly disproportionate to who I am. I want to use the journey that I am on. And I think I don't mourn the journey that I'm on. It's been tough. I've had some real big challenges. I've had some really amazing things as well, but I don't mourn any of the journey because I feel like I've been through it and I've learned lessons from it so that I can help other people on their journey.
Yes. And so before we close out this segment, Dr. Decker, you shared with me that there was a time in your journey when you did not feel the fulfillment out of your everyday work. And that's when you made some changes, because we read and we can tell that you've been an high achiever just from ever in your earlier years, your younger years. You talked about all the things you've done. And people say an overachiever. I don't know that that's a real thing, says the overachiever. But I don't know it's a real thing. I think a lot of us are just more disciplined to go after the things that we want or feel. But sometimes it's because maybe we are still not clear on our why. But you shared that you had a moment in your career when you didn't feel fulfilled. How did you go through that? How did you switch your mindset and change everything so you can get to a place where you are fulfilled, your own self?
It took a really long time. It really took a long time. And even after COVID, I was so burned out when I came back, because COVID, when we came back, it was a time of addition, right? So yes. Addition of plexiglass in front of everybody, and addition in our office of more PPE, more regulations, more bureaucracy. We had somebody who would sit in we hired a high school kid who would sit in our reception area and take people's temperatures when they came in. Just right. Cumbersome and just challenging. And so my burnout actually got even worse. And I was actually to the point that I was within 2 months of selling my dental practice and walking away. I was so close to it. And then when that all fell apart, the person I was going to sell my practice to was in a horrific car accident. Ooh. And it turns out that selling and walking away would have been the biggest mistake that I could have made, because I wasn't facing what was going on in my life. I wasn't facing it. I was trying to escape from it. And I felt, I just got to get out of this dentistry. I got to get out of it, and then I'll figure it out. We'll let the rest of the pieces fall then. Would have been such a mistake. And then when I knew that I had to keep going in the practice, and I had to, I was so burnt out, and I got so much busier. But what I found out is that, okay, I'm on this road. I have to be on this road for now. I don't know what the future is going to hold, but I have to go through this.
Yes.
I have to figure out, what is it about my job that I like? How can I do more of that? Because I don't think that's a question that we ask ourselves. We just say, I'm burned out. I don't like my job anymore. I feel I need a change. I need a change. And we don't do any of the work. We just make the change. And so there's something else that's going to do the exact same thing to us.
Yes.
So after 20 plus years, the technical part of dentistry, I'm really good at it. I just know that I am, because I've had a lot of practice.
Yes.
That is not what gets me out of bed in the morning. What gets me out of bed in the morning is the chance to have relationships with people. Some of my patients I've known for 20 years. Some of my team has been with me for 20 years. I mean, that's amazing to have humans that will stay on the journey for that long.
Yes.
So I know what makes my heart beat is relationships.
Yes.
So I find ways to do more of that. I have more conversations with my team, with my patients. It gets me behind sometimes, but I will die on the hill of trying to be a relationship person. That's that important to me. So I found that. And since I have found that, and now I actually am a 50% owner of my dental practice. I found a partner to buy half my practice.
Okay.
And so now I can not only continue with the relationships there, but I could continue to grow relationships through my coaching and speaking and all of that. So It's such a good place to be in. It is so fulfilling. But I had to figure out what it was I liked about my job, and I needed to figure out how to do more of that.
Wow. That is so profound. If you all heard what I heard, it's what that would be the approach that would yield so much healing in yourself and so much more resilience to move forward when you feel stuck. If in our relationships, marriages, we sat and look, what do I love about this relationship? What do I love about my husband, my wife, or whatever? And from that place, pivot to redesigning that relationship to have more of those experiences and moments. What would that look like, right? You won't abandon ship, at least not now, right? You will have more to go. And so I'm listening to that because so many people in my coaching, and career development, workforce strategy, people come to me and the first thing they're thinking, I can't do this anymore. And I'm like, why? Well, because of this. Why? Because of that. Well, why have you done it for so long? Is it a change or you just need a refresh? It's like, I don't throw my computer out when it freezes up, right? I hit the restart button. I call people and I go into, this is my computer. I don't want a new one because I've got all my documents. It's got programming, the cookies and everything are where they're supposed to be. I want this one to work. So it's a choice that we make, but that mindset that you've just given us of what do I love about my work? And so even if you're going to leave it behind, Dr. Recker, what I hear you saying, even if you leave it behind, you're not going to go start that same pattern over in the next relationship, in the next thing, in the next career. You're going to understand again your why. What keeps you moving? What gets you out of bed? And someone told me yesterday about the podcast. She's like, you said on the podcast, why do you get up out of bed in the morning? That's what you need to know. What makes you roll out of the sheet, even when it's freezing cold, and go out the door? What is the one thing? And don't tell me it's your kids. Don't tell me it's your wife, because that is not your why. That is the why that you've attached to now after you've been whying for a long time. So and she said that is the thing that got her out of illness and fighting through to get healed up and getting on our feet and not giving up on our career and redesigning. I'm like, there we go. So if y'all are listening, this is reinforcing. Dr. Recker has reinforced exactly what we've been talking about all the time. And he's living proof. He shared his story. We'll be right back after a moment from our sponsors. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We're back with Dr. Eric Recker. He is helping us learn how to win in the now, mastering the mindset of owning the present to propel us to even brighter days ahead. And so, Dr. Recker, your experience with bullying has played a significant role in your journey. And so, how did you shape your mindset? And how did you help others overcome similar challenges in the work that you do as a coach and trainer?
Yeah, I think we are just carrying around garbage mindsets. I think a lot of us are. We are, I like to say that we're working on old operating systems.
Ooh, so, yes.
You know, we have to update our phones all the time, right? We have to update our computers. We have to restart them. We have to do whatever it is. But I don't think we do that very well with ourselves. And even with our why. My why when I graduated dental school is not my why right now. I'm in a different phase of life. So sorry to be a spoiler, but if you come up with a why, that's not your why for the rest of your life.
Thank you.
Of your life. So, but that's good. That's the way it should be, because or else we just settle into it. But here's the thing. When I was in second and third grade in my small town in Iowa, I still live in the same town I grew up in because it's amazing. But when I was growing up, my earliest memories were laying in bed on a Monday morning, 5 or 6 o'clock. I did not want my mom to wake me up. It's not a feeling that a 7, 8, 9-year-old should have. But the reason that I didn't want her to wake me up because I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to face the walk to school, and I didn't want to face school because I knew that there was a chance somebody was going to take my backpack and go run off with it or push me down or call me names, stuff that a lot of people dealt with. My bullying story is an everyday bullying story. It's not like I had a lot of physical harm or anything done to me like that, but words are brutal. And people who say that words don't make a big difference, then I challenge you to listen to some of the words that keep running around in your mind.
Come on.
Yeah. So here I was on the recess kickball playground.
Mm-hmm.
Recess kickball in Iowa in the early 80s was a big flipping deal. It was a big deal getting to play recess. And so they'd pick teams, and I was told that it's not that I was picked last. I would have loved to be picked last, but I was told that I couldn't play.
Wow.
I wasn't good enough. And I was told that I wasn't good enough multiple times. People look at me and they say, I don't believe that story because you've accomplished so much, and look at you, you're 6'5", you're athletic, all that stuff. So a little soft around the edges at that point. I was one of the youngest people in my class. I wasn't very coordinated. So yeah, it's probably terrible. But all I wanted to do was prove to those kids that I could play kickball.
Had it. Yes.
And my parents were so supportive of me. Like we would go, the school was 2 blocks away from our house. So my dad would go and pitch me kickballs, and we'd do stuff like that because my parents just wanted us to be loved. And that's what got me through it. But I remember standing on the side of that recess kickball field, doing everything I could to choke back the tears, hearing you're not good enough to play. And I made a pact with myself that I was going to be so freaking good at everything that I ever did that no one
can tell you
no one would ever not pick me. So guess what that does to a young kid?
Yes.
That's an anchor.
Yes.
That's an anchor. Pressure my entire life. I didn't tell my parents about the bullying. I told them that I didn't get to play kickball at recess. And so my dad helped me out with that to try to get me to be good at kickball so I could play. Like my parents are so supportive, and I'm so thankful for that. But everything in my life wasn't good enough. And so I just got so naturally competitive, thinking that I had to be the best at everything that I did.
Wow.
It is not a sustainable mindset. It's a mindset that will help you find yourself with chest pain, heart palpitations, panic attacks, all that kind of stuff, because you are so burned out from pushing so hard.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I can absolutely relate to that. I remember as a young child, probably in like second grade or third maybe, I was always first place. And no matter what, I was always first place. And I remember, this conversation with my dad that said, he promised me a bike. And if I got first place, I'm like, well, that's a no-brainer. I'm going to get my bike, right? So I'm all excited, but I'm making sure I don't mess up. And because it was competitive. I mean, I would get 99 or 98, and then the next person's getting 97, next 96. And it was just barely percentage. And this is in all subject areas, because I was born and raised in Ghana, South America, where it's very competitive. Academics is the biggest thing ever, right? And then comes sports. But my dad said to me when it was time to bring my report card and get the bike, or at least make plans to go get my bike, he said, well, why did you get 98%? Why couldn't you just get 100?
Oh.
And God rest his soul, that's where his understanding of whatever, I think he was just trying to get out of getting me my bike. I know he was. I'm pretty sure he was. That's his character. But he doesn't have a clue of what that did to me. And so it was 100% or it didn't matter. So when you talk about winning in the now, You have to understand, I had no idea. A lot of times on the podcast, I talk about us celebrating the smaller wins, because a lot of times we're working towards the big win that everyone can see and everyone would clap for. And no, even when you sometimes present your smaller win, someone would say, like my dad said, well, you're acting like you just became the queen of Zambia. What's wrong with you? You just won a damn stupid certificate, you know? And someone might say that or look at you where you know they're saying it or whatever. But when you're in a child state, whether the bullying was extreme, like some of the wild stories we heard, or it was a parent or a teacher or a colleague or whatever, when these impressions come, we make belief systems, is what Dr. Recker is reminding of us, that we create a belief system that we dreadfully carry throughout the course of our lives until we allow ourselves to really sit in the present and realize, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And then you realize that you're trying to keep up with societal expectations or your mom's expectations, and she's not even like that's from decades ago, but it's present with you now. And I hope that our viewers are catching that those beliefs, those limiting beliefs, don't just pop up and you're not the way you are because that's how I am.
Yeah.
Dr. Becker just told us he became what the world calls an overachiever. And it's wonderful that he's all those things, but it was tiring. It was weary. And I can say that happened to me. And now I dance for an audience of one, is what I say. I live to please God.
Yeah.
Everybody else, you fall in line. Because if he's happy and he's pleased, then I'm happy and I'm pleased. And there you are, figuring out what you're going to do with all that.
Yeah.
So what advice, Dr. Decker, do you have for those struggling to break free from societal expectations? What would you say to them?
I just think we need to name the garbage stuff that's running around in our head. I just think we need to name some of those lies. And some of this is where therapy comes in. Therapy is a good thing. Therapy is a good thing. Like I remember when I went to see a therapist for the first time, and I felt like a loser. I'm like, only weird people go for therapy. Oh my goodness, I had somebody that I could unload all my garbage to, and they could help me process it. How cool is that? That's a lot of what we do as coaches, right? Alisa, that's what we do.
Exactly.
We help people process life. Now, I like to help people move forward as a coach. Like I don't want to stick in the weeds a lot. There's other people who are better at that. I want to take a snapshot of where we are right now, and I want to move forward. I think what we need to do is we need to name our broken operating systems.
Yes.
We need to name our old versions. And we need to get that out and realize that we are living for something that is no longer relevant. Those bullies moved on from me when they went back to class after recess. Come on.
Yes, they did.
I let them have dominion over me 30 years later. But we do it. And then also looking back and realizing, I think this is huge, like for your example with your dad.
Yes.
I never met your dad, but I believe your dad was doing the best he could with what he had.
I'm sure he was. Absolutely.
Also working on his own broken operating system.
Exactly. And that is where forgiveness comes in, right, Dr. Decker? Because it was very early in my life. I think I was about 18 years old, because the story would go that in a domestic violence situation, I ended up getting injured, suffering a head injury that was life-threatening. I had damaged tissues in my brain, lost my memory, and all this stuff that we've spoke on the podcast before. And it was my dad. And so a lot of people said, well, how did you forgive him? Well, first of all, the forgiveness was never about him, right? Because I ended up being crippled and ill and in bed for almost a year with a memory loss and couldn't remember all this stuff. And then making a full recovery, I was going to waste any of my energy being mad at someone when God just literally gave me a second chance at life. I couldn't see it possible at that age. And so for me, forgiveness came, number one, because I was a child who ended up asking and knowing so much about my dad's childhood, how he was raised, what his dad was like, knowing my grandma and seeing all the things that came about about. And it's so everything made sense. Like he was literally, like you said, Dr. Recker, doing the best he can with what he had, which was not a lot. And so it didn't excuse the things, but it definitely gave me a road to say, it's easier to let go. They just don't know better. And Jesus was on the cross, and y'all can get upset with us when we get here, but I'm just going to tell y'all, the Bible and what I know stays true for my life. And this makes me all that you get to see that I do in the world, who I am. When Jesus was on the cross, he said, after those people beat him, dragged him, spat on him, put vinegar on him, on his wounds, to make his skin burn, his flesh, in his mind and in his spirit, he released, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. And so all I've ever wanted to be was like Jesus. I became a Christian because I wanted to be Christ-like, following him. All the other things they do in religion is not my business because I'm following Jesus, okay? But when you understand that people can only make decisions where their knowledge is, and we've talked about this, Dr. Reck, on the podcast, we can't make decisions above our knowledge, right? So when people do something to you, about you, for you, whatever you call it, it's where they're at. It's not a reflection of me and my worth. And as a child, I thought that all I was only worthy of a bike if I got 100%. And so now I was working to get 100% at everything. And when I became a wife, it was 100% at everything. And not even my husband expected me to do that. And I was burning myself out trying to be the wife, be the student, be the woman in church that did all the thing, the community leader, the boss that did everything. And that was exhausting. And I actually had a heart attack at age like 33. And I was laying in the hospital because, like you said, I'm living proof of everything you just said. It will burn you out with anxiety, fear, stress, ongoing, no matter what you look like and what you do. Behind is this button ticking, tick tock, that's going to go boom. And when it goes boom, we don't know what's going to happen. But when the boom happens, if you're a person like us and you're listening and the boom happened in your life, please, even if it's a small boom, a bigger boom, please pay attention. It's telling you what Dr. Recker said. Do the reprogramming of how you think.
Yeah. And that's the wonderful thing that we get to do as coaches. We get to walk alongside somebody and help them name what the broken operating system is. And then help to install one that is going to help lead them to the life that they want. That's why I like to say, I sign my emails good days ahead, Eric, because
I love that.
I want to keep believing that good days are ahead. And I want people that I work with to believe that good days are ahead. You know, one of the most valuable things that I've taught my dental team is to meet people where they are. So we have people who come into our office with so many different things on their mind, so many different priorities, so many different mindsets, so many different things. And we see them for a snapshot. We don't know what happened before they came in. We don't know what their week, their year is like. We don't know if a family member's gotten a diagnosis. We don't know any of that stuff. But what we do know is we have the ability to meet somebody right where they are and then be a part of the good part of their story. That's what we have. And that is such a privilege.
Mm-hmm. It is. And that's why I remember wanting to become a therapist, and I didn't pursue it, and I thought all was lost because back in those days, coaches were not a big thing. You only heard of a coach for athletics or sports, right? But once I determined and understood what a coach does, I'm like, that's who I've always been. Now just sign me up. Where do I get the license? What do I do? How do I do this? And so when I became a certified coach, starting off with the John Maxwell team, I remember posting it, and many of my schoolmates from childhood and high school were like, this is exactly what you're born to do. You've been doing this your whole life. And so I realized the difference between therapy was definitely to help you to go back to where you were stuck. And I realized that some therapists actually now includes coaching, but they really will get you to realize where you got stuck. But as coaches, we get you unstuck. We help you create the plan, and we're by your ringside saying, come on, give him an uppercut, give him a jab, let's go, you can do it. And then you come back over there and we put the water, refresh you and wipe your face and get you back in the ring to keep punching away at your goals, because brighter days, as Dr. Recker says, is always ahead. I am loving this, my friends. We have come to the end of our first episode with Dr. Recker. You're going to have to tune into our next episode that's coming up, where Dr. Recker will give us one of his signature programs. He will take us on an insight and some strategies on thriving beyond burnout. You don't want to miss it. But for now, go to Dr. Recker's website at www.ericrecker.com. If you're watching live, you can see the website coming up in the bottom. And I want you to bum rush him with love on social media by giving him a follow and tapping in with the work and the services that he offers. Dr. Recker, before we end this episode, is there anything that you want to say to us about knowing that brighter days are ahead?
Well, I do want to just say one thing in case people try to go to the website. It's actually ERIC.
Oh, yes, there's an error here. I see it.
Okay, in there. No big deal. I just want to make sure that one will be a little bit tough to find.
Yes. Let's not do that one. Mm-hmm.
But I just want people to, wherever you're at, no matter how tough life seems, no matter how big the mountain in front of you seems, just take the first step. Just think what one small but significant step you can take, because with every step you get closer to the top of that mountain that you're facing, and you'll always look up at it and it will always seem insurmountable if you don't take that first step. So whether that first step is reaching out to a coach, whether it is, listening to some more podcasts and some blogs, whatever it is that you need to do, if you don't know what to do, hit me up. I'm happy to have a conversation and try to get you unstuck. But just know that there is hope. It doesn't have to stay the way that it is right now.
It doesn't have to stay. You all heard it. Phenomenal first episode. Come back to the next episode next week, where Dr. Recker is going to take us on moving beyond burnout and thriving in our lives. We're looking forward to have you on our next episode. Bye now.